Okay, now, before we start the reading, let's just talk about a couple of things about SAT reading. The reading, I don't know if you noticed, is extremely difficult. Did you guys already see this? Like, do you already observe that the reading on the SAT is extremely difficult?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. There's going to be ways around this. So I want to really talk about it. Like, if we do it the right way, we can turn that difficulty into our advantage. Because it might be difficult for everyone else, but you guys have gotten the tricks. Okay?
Okay.
So rule number 1, read fast. Read fast. Now, what does it mean to read fast? I mean, it means a lot of things, but what I mean by read fast is I need you to, I'm sorry?
Don't you use like your pencil while like you're reading to like go like
You know, I've heard tutors say that. I don't mind if you use your pencil. That's okay. It's not like the way I explain it, but you know, it might work. What I mean, okay, let's see. I got to be aware of whether Lucas joins. Hold on. Lucas is not here yet. Okay. All right. Anyway, so what I mean by it is that even though it's really, really difficult. Okay, actually, you know what? I was working on something just before we started, and I'm just going to read it to you guys, okay?
Okay.
So I want you guys both, if you will, to close your eyes or just put your hand like this and just like try not to even be looking at anything and just listen to me and tell me if you can catch what this passage is talking about, right? This is a different passage before we do ours. Okay, I'm going to read it to you. Unlike the gold which needed nothing and must be worshipped in close-locked solitude, which was hidden away from the daylight, was deaf to the song of birds, and started to know human tones, Effie was a creature of endless claims and ever-growing desires, seeking and loving sunshine and living sounds and living movements. All right, do you guys feel like you know what it's about so far, or no?
No.
No.
Okay, now, that's really weird writing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, the good news is, it's weird for everyone, but people don't necessarily know like the ways to navigate it. So if I teach you guys some of these secrets and you pick them up, suddenly you have an advantage compared to everyone else. So we're going to turn lemon into lemonade, basically. Okay. The idea with this really verbose, like a lot of words and a lot of poetic type of stuff, the idea of that is only a little bit of it matters. So as you're listening to me read, I want you guys to let 90% of it, you know, anything that you don't understand, just let it totally go in one ear and out the other. But I want you to look for that one little thing that you do understand, okay? Now, the idea is that one little thing that is the main thing that's happening, that's all you need to get. And everything else is total garbage. So it's kind of like good news. Like, even though it is harder, it's not harder in the sense that, you know, it's a really tough passage and you need to know everything. It's that there's only that little 10% that you got to get out of it, okay? So now we're actually going to go to our passage because if we're going to try to understand it, we may as well kind of get it anyway. So I'm going to just go ahead and start reading it a little, and we'll come back to the rules in a second. So, okay. No man likes to acknowledge that he has made a mistake in the choice of his profession, and every man worthy of the name will row long against the wind and tide before he allows himself to cry out, "I am baffled," and submits to be floated passively back to land. From the first week of my residence in X, I felt my occupation irksome. The thing itself, the work of copying and translating business letters, was a dry and tedious task enough, but had that been all, I should long have borne with the nuisance. I am not of an impatient nature and influenced by the double desire of getting my living and justifying to myself and others the resolution I have taken to become a tradesman. I should have endured in silence the rust and cramp of my best faculties. I should not have whispered, even inwardly, that I longed for liberty. I should have pent in every sigh by which my heart might have ventured to intimate its distress under the closeness, smoke, monotony, and joyless tumult of Big Ben Close. All right, guys, what do you think? How much of that you feel like you picked up?
he looked or seemed like he like messed up something.
Some regret, right? Something was regretful. Something went wrong, right?
Yeah.
Deontay, your computer volume is definitely off, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Kasim, try to lower our volume just enough so that you still hear us, but not too loud, because I'm getting a little echo. I'm not trying to figure out where it's coming from. But anyway, so okay. So we're picking up that, this guy, he's working for sure, right? You guys both picked up that it has to do with a profession, an occupation. He's at work, right?
Yeah.
Now, I'll tell you, because I know this passage, that the thing they're going to ask you about is, like, no man likes to acknowledge blah, 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 blah. So that's like a general statement about what it's like for people in the workplace. And then it changes from a general statement to what in the moment we get into this blue part, if you're seeing it on my screen. It goes from like a general statement about any person in their workplace to what?
Describing?
His.
To his own story, right? Is that what you're going to say?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it goes from like a general statement about work in general and things that go wrong at work to like his own story about something that went wrong at work, right? Now, do you guys believe me when I say that that's all we need to know?
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy to me. Like, I think it took me a long time teaching this to realize that it's not all necessary. In fact, most of it is not. And I think what happens in reading is that when we try to get everything, that's when everything falls apart. Not just on the SAT, but if you take the ACT or even your test in school, get that feeling like if I try to get everything, I'm going to kind of ruin things a little. Let me try to just get the couple things that are most important. So let's come back to our rules. Rule 1 is read fast. Rule number 2 is be willing to ignore things. So on our passage, if we're saying that we know it's at work, we know they were talking about something general, and then it went to the dude's own personal story, that means that we ignored a whole lot because we're just picking out a couple of things, and the passage is already like 150 words, right? Does that make sense so far, that we're okay with the idea that we're ignoring and missing a lot of things?
Yeah.
All right, you guys with me? Okay, let me know if you guys have any questions along the way, okay? All right. Rule number 3, and this is going to be the hard one for both of you guys, because both of you guys are like low-key, you're real cool dudes, and you kind of talk with like a real soft voice, you know. Rule number 3 is going to be hard for you guys. I want you to read like you're acting it out for like, let's say, like auditioning for the school play. So if I ask you guys to do that in front of me, do you feel like it'd be making a fool out of yourself?
Depending on the passage.
Cool. Cool. Well, you know what? I don't think I'm even going to ask you, but you know, I want you to imagine yourself doing that. Now you're not going to really read out loud on the real SAT anyway, right? So something that you're going to really hear me say a lot of is what I tell people all the time. Read aloud in your head. Read aloud in your head. Like, in other words, there's lots of ways to read. Like, we could really be reading, like, word for word, like, you know, read like you're acting it out. We could really be going very word for word. But if you can get the feeling when you're reading like it's a conversation, like you're talking at that same speed that you're doing conversation, you're going to get much more out of it. Trust me when I say that. Now, when I say read like you're acting it out, what I really mean is highlight the emotion in, or like in certain parts. Like we all have this ability to notice emotion. Like just think about like at school, everything is chill, and then suddenly like two people who are boyfriend and girlfriend start arguing, everybody will look over and be like, ooh, that's what, whoa, look what happened, right? Like, don't we all have the ability to notice when there's some emotion going on, and like, it's like an instinct of ours, right?
Yeah.
So when you're reading, you take advantage of that. The emotion is everything. Why did this person write this if they weren't trying to convey some emotion? Now, what are the emotions? Pain. What was the big emotion in this one, by the way, so far?
I'm not really sure.
I wrote it on the screen. I'll give you guys a hint. I wrote it on the screen. What's the real emotion?
Regret.
Regret. Yeah, regret. Like, I just had a car crash last week. A car just came at me and just hit me while I wasn't doing anything. But my regret was like, man, I could have gotten out of the way. I could have just thrown it in reverse and just got out of there, right? It's an emotion. You see how that, like when you guys heard that, were you like, whoa, right? So when you're reading, you want to pick up that emotion. So now I want you guys to listen to how I'm reading. I'm going to read the same exact thing, and I want you to listen for anything that has to do with emotion and kind of like throw out anything else, okay? No man likes to acknowledge that he's made a mistake in the choice of his profession. All right, so I'm going to highlight the emotion when I see it. He made a mistake, right? That's some emotion. Every man worthy of the name will row long against the wind and tide before he allows himself to cry out, I am baffled. That's humiliation, right? I made a mistake, and I'm willing to admit it, and submits to be floated passively back to land. From the first week of my residence in X, I felt my occupation irksome. The thing itself, the work of copying and translating business letters, was a dry and tedious task. What emotion is this? A dry and tedious task.
Boring.
Boredom. Yeah, boredom is an emotion. It's like a feeling that we get, right? It's like, man, that job was boring. But had that been all, I should have long borne with the nuisance. I am not of an impatient nature and influenced by the double desire of getting my living and justifying to myself and others the resolution I had taken to become a tradesman. If you didn't understand any of that, then you're just like me, because I don't feel like I got any of that. But I'm willing to say I didn't get any of that, but I'm still listening for that one thing that I am going to get. That's what we're here to do, okay, guys? Only 10% of this is going to be important at the end of the day. We're here to catch that 10%, okay? I should have endured in the silence the rust and cramp of my best faculties. What emotion is this?
Is there regret?
What emotion is this? It's the same emotion. What?
Is there regret?
Regret. I should have done this. I should have thrown my car in reverse. I should not have whispered, right? So we're noticing, I mean, if you're catching this stuff, then you're going to get questions right, because you're getting, like the reason why he wrote this is to give us some emotion. He was really upset. He's going to tell us why, right? And everything else is unnecessary. Even inwardly, that I longed for liberty. What emotion is that?
I'm not really sure.
Longing for liberty is like a feeling of being trapped, right? At this job. So he's like feeling trapped in his job. You're saying?
Patience.
Patience, or maybe lacking patience, right? Like I really wish I was out of here. I mean, I have a lot more patience. Regret, again, I should have pent in every sigh by which my heart might have ventured to intimate its distress under the closeless smoke, monotony, and joyless tumult of Big Ben Close, and its panting desire for freer and fresher scenes. This is a good example right here of how only some of this is important. All I'm picking up in this whole green part is that there's some dude, and his name is Big Ben Close. Okay? Now, why does that matter? Well, first of all, you notice that that it's capitalized, right? That we can tell it's a name because it's capitalized.
Mm-hmm.
And so we know that now this guy has a lot of regret, a lot of anguish, and it has to do with some workplace, right? And its panting desire for freer and fresher scenes. I should have set up the image of duty, the fetish of perseverance, in my small bedroom at Mrs. King's lodging. And they, too, should have been my household gods, from which my darling, my cherished in secret, imagination, the tender and the mighty, should never either by softness or strength, have severed me. But this was not all. The antipathy which had sprung up between myself and my employer, striking deeper root and spreading denser shade daily, excluded me from every glimpse of the sunshine of life. What emotion is that?
Like trapped or like isolation.
Is it happiness? I'll ask you that. Is it happiness?
No,
No.
sadness.
It's sadness. Yeah, something and anger too, because something is the thing keeping me, like frustration. Something is keeping me away from seeing the sunshine of life, right? And I began to feel like a plant growing in humid darkness out of the slimy walls of a well. What emotion is that?
Disgust or something.
Really, really, I mean, I'm on the verge here of jumping off a tall building if I'm saying a line like that, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys, tell me real quick. In a few minutes, have I changed your perception of the reading a little bit or no?
A lot.
Cool. I mean, I'm a math guy. I was originally a math guy. And the first 2 years that I tutored, I didn't really want to do the reading and writing. Like, it wasn't my specialty when I was in high school. And it looked really intimidating, actually, you know? And then other tutors I worked with sort of showed me, no, you got to focus on this, you got to focus on that. And it just gave me enough just to start working with students. And after doing it a little while, I was like, man, this is, if you're doing it with a strategy, if you're thinking about certain things and you have a plan for how you're going to tackle it, it actually is okay, you know, and it's enjoyable. And I can't repeat it enough times. It's the idea of just being okay with what we don't know. When we try to know everything is really when we're going to know nothing. Have you guys ever read like a paragraph and then at the end of it you're like, what did I just read? I have no idea what I just read.
Yeah.
We've all had that feeling, and people tell me about that all the time. Like a girl was telling me, I suffer from ADD. I don't really pay attention. And my answer to her was, don't try to do every single thing. If you're just trying to get that one little thing out of it, then you won't have ADD because you're doing one idea at a time as opposed to feeling like I have to do everything. Okay, so antipathy is the only word which can express the feeling Edward Crimsworth had for me. Now notice that this wording right here is not hard. There's only one word that can express the feeling that this guy had for me. And notice what I said. If we were really trying to understand everything in this passage and we were feeling intimidated by that, we might have gone past this purple line and not paid attention to it because everything else was in our head, right? So the feeling of, I don't care about that stuff I didn't understand is going to make you get what's the most important part of the passage. So what's the most important part of the passage? What's going on here?
It's like a turning point, kind of.
Well, do we know what antipathy is or no?
Not sure.
No. Okay, now if we don't know what antipathy is, that's okay because they just finished talking about the slimy walls of a well. Whatever was going on made me feel like a plant growing in humid darkness out of the slimy walls of a well. So now, knowing that they just said that, what do you think antipathy means about the feeling Edward Crimsworth had for me?
The
Do you think it
opposite.
was, hey, buddy, you're my best friend, or no? What?
Opposite.
What I'm saying is we're hearing about like some deep depression, and then there's some guy who has a certain feeling toward us. So I think that's enough for us to be able to say that this is not our friend. Like something they're about to tell us about this guy that really hates us. Does that at least make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So antipathy is the only word which can express the feeling Edward Crimsworth had for me, a feeling in great measure involuntary, and which was liable to be excited by the most trifling movement, look, or word of mine. My southern accent annoyed him. Is this part right here easy or hard to understand?
Easy.
Yes, and if you ignore all the hard stuff, there will be enough easy stuff to get you through, right? The degree of education evinced in my language irritated him. What did they just say?
I was just thinking of irritated. Yeah. Everything
What
about
was it that they're trying to say there? I'm sorry?
um yeah, it irritated.
Yeah, like his education irritated the other guy, right? So what emotion is that, by the way? You have a lot of education. That irritates me. What emotion is that?
Annoyed.
Annoyed. Do you guys feel a little jealousy in there? Because he had education and that angered, like, has it ever angered you that anybody has education? I mean, why would I care if I'm not jealous, right?
Yeah.
My punctuality,
Yeah, I
industry,
see
and
it.
accuracy fixed his dislike and gave it the high flavor and poignant relish of envy. He feared that I, too, should one day make a successful tradesman. So now, what emotion is this?
Mm, and probably he was um inferior that
Have
he
you
might take his dream,
that he
kind
might
of.
do what to his dream?
That he might take his dream from him.
And what emotion is that? What you just expressed, what emotion is that?
Like, happy.
So,
Somebody's gonna come and be more successful than me. What is that?
Oh. He's
angry.
mad.
Jealousy, right? I mean, why wouldn't we want somebody else to be successful? There's some like, oh yeah, that guy, he's gonna be better than me. I hate him, right? That's jealousy right there. Had I been in anything inferior to him, he would not have hated me so thoroughly. But I knew all that he knew, and what was worse, he suspected that I kept the padlock of silence on mental wealth in which he was no sharer. If he could have once placed me in a ridiculous or mortifying position, he would have forgiven me much, but I was guarded by three faculties: caution, tact, and observation. And prowling and prying as was Edward's malignity, it could never baffle the lynx eyes of these, my natural sentinels. Day by day did his malice watch my tact, hoping it would sleep, and prepared to steal snake-like on its slumber. But tact, if it be genuine, never sleeps. All right, guys, what do you think the narrator is saying here?
I'm not really sure.
Who do you guys think is the one that's prepared to steal like a snake?
Um,
The other person.
the other
The
guy.
other person, Edward.
When
So
I was
Edward is this jealous guy. He's evil. He's prepared to steal on me like a snake. But what is the narrator saying in response to that?
sneaky.
Well, has anybody ever said to you, don't sleep on this, don't sleep on that? What does it mean?
Um,
So like, get like an apology or like. Wait a minute. So like,
I
don't
don't know
sleep
where it is.
on
Yeah, I don't
something
know. I don't
like
know the word.
that. Like, get.
Yeah, to don't sleep, like something might happen. Don't sleep on that thing that might happen. Like in other words, pay attention, right? If you're not sleeping, you're paying attention.
Oh.
Don't sleep. That thing might happen. You better be looking out, right? That's what people say, right? So Edward
Yeah.
is jealous. He's prepared to like be sneaky like a snake, but this guy is never sleeping. He's paying attention. He's watching Edward. He's keeping an eye on that guy who wants to do harm to him, right? I had received my first quarter's wages and was returning to my lodgings, possessed heart and soul with the pleasant feeling that the master who had paid me grudge every penny of that hard-earned pittance. I had long ceased to regard Mr. Crimsworth as my brother. What's going on here? Right here.
Probably a desire.
Well, do we know what it means to cease something?
Let's see. Hmm. Waited? I don't know.
Cease is like stopping. So cease, cease that thing that you're doing. Like if somebody's annoying you, you can say cease. Or have you ever heard cease and desist? Like something police say, right? So cease means to stop. So I had long stopped regarding Crimsworth as my brother. So what story is that telling? A long time ago, I stopped regarding him as my brother.
That they stopped talking or communicating.
Yeah, it's kind of telling that it wasn't always one way, right? Like in the beginning, they were tight, they were friends. Yeah. And later they became what?
Strangers?
Enemies. Enemies, because he's a snake prepared to steal on me, right? He was a hard, grinding master. He wished to be an inexorable tyrant. That was all. Thoughts, not varied but strong, occupied my mind. Two voices spoke within me. Again and again, they uttered the same monotonous phrases. One said, "William, your life is intolerable." The other, "What can you do to alter it?" Guys, you hear the emotion in my voice when I'm reading it?
Yeah.
Do you guys feel like you're able to read as fast as I'm reading right now?
Yep.
Yeah.
You can, especially if you're skipping the words you don't care for, right? The words you don't know. Do you feel like you can have that kind of emotion when you read?
Yeah.
It's easy. It's the easy part to do. So we're talking about, okay, SAT reading, no question. It's very challenging, right? But we're going to focus on the parts that are easy, and I can just tell you from my previous experience that helps, and that will get you some solid results. One of the voices said, "William, your life is intolerable." The other voice said, "What can you do to alter it?" I walked fast, for it was cold. For it was a cold, frosty night in January. As I approached my lodging, I turned from a general view of my affairs to the particular speculation as to whether my fire would be out. Looking toward the window of my sitting room, I saw no cheering red gleam. So what happened with the fire? So he's approaching his lodging. He's walking toward his home. He's speculating whether my fire would be out or not. And he gets there and he sees no cheering red gleam. What's happening?
The fire went out.
The fire is out. And why do we care that the fire is out? That has nothing to do with Edward Crimsworth. Why do we care? Why do you think they're telling us about a fire, something so random?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the thing we got to be ready for on these... Okay, the first passage is the weirdest one, by the way. If you skip the first passage and go straight to the second one, you'll be doing yourself a major service. But you do have to do it at some point. And what you want to be ready for are the metaphors. This is a metaphor. So we were friends. Now we hate each other. My life sucks. I feel like a piece of slime growing on a wall. He said, literally, right? That's not too pleasant. And then he's on his way home. He's like, hey, maybe there's at least one cheerful thing. Maybe my fire will still be burning. And then he gets home and he's like, my fire is out. That sucks. It's pretty depressing, right? So we want to be ready for metaphors, basically, is what I'm saying. And we want to move through them fast, because what if we don't get this metaphor? That's fine, because there's plenty of other stuff that we are going to get. Alrighty, now, one more thing that should give you a little bit of comfort about the SAT is that it's very quote-based. Everything is exactly written. If they ask you a question, it's because there's a line somewhere in the passage that tells you exactly the answer to that question. So I'm going to try to point out a lot of those for you guys. And I don't want to take a long time, so if I find it quickly, I'll go ahead and just tell it to you guys. Which choice best summarizes the passage? All right, Deontay, can you just tell me in your words how you would summarize this passage?
So, it started off by him giving a general statement about work. Then he switched it into his idea or his opinion. And then it went to his enemy or his brother, and something happened. And
so the story has to do with an enemy, a guy who he used to think of as his brother, used to be friends.
Yeah.
And so it's a story about what kinds of emotions?
Confused, anger, jealousy.
So the general statement about work and then we saw some regret. When you have regret at work, something about that. And then we saw his story that at his work there was this enemy. They used to be friends, but now there's a lot of anger and jealousy, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so which choice matches this one? By the way, we just answered a question in our own words, which you want to do whenever possible. There are only a few questions that you can't answer first in your own words, where it says, I might say, which of the following is true? And there's no way to answer that in your own words, right? But whenever we're able to sort of just answer it in our own words first, we always should, because we want the answer choice to come to us and not the other way around. So which of these choices matches what we said?
D.
C and B. Two characters employed in the same office become increasingly competitive.
Wait, I said D.
D for dog, you said, or B for boy?
I said D.
The letters don't come through on the phone line, so you got to tell me the animal.
Dog.
Okay, sorry. A new employee experiences optimism, then frustration, and finally despair. All right, and that was Deontay, right?
Kasim said D.
Kasim said D. All right, and Deontay, what about you?
I don't really know. I feel like it's C, but it didn't say anything about publicly.
Okay, so now we're going to be getting used to the idea that this is very literal. And I'm going to pick out one little thing with each answer choice that's wrong. When we see optimism in choice D, I don't think at any point there was ever optimism. The only positive thing, there was only one positive emotion that sounded nice that I heard. Do you guys remember what it was? One thing that might have been interpreted as nice in some way. Yeah. Well, he had a successful history. He had a lot of ability, right? And the other one was that he considered the guy to be his brother, that he liked the guy in the beginning at least, right? But to say optimism, that's like a really strong emotion. And the way the SCP is so literal, we would have had to see at some point the author saying, yeah, I was really looking forward to this job. And as I'm looking through, we never even see that. Like you could almost feel it underneath. That maybe in the beginning he was, excited about the job, but we never actually see it. So the problem with choice D is that there was no optimism. What's wrong with C for cat?
Publicly.
Yep. He never defends his choice publicly. You never see him say to anybody, the reason why I did this is this, and defending himself publicly. Perfect. What's wrong with B? A ends up being the answer, by the way, but what's wrong with B?
Same office.
They were in the same office. Edward Crimsworth was his coworker.
Competitive.
What's wrong with saying that the two characters became competitive?
Because they weren't. It was more like they didn't really like show any competition, but like it was like more like they were just glaring at each other.
Yeah, only one of them was competitive, right? The only Edward Crimsworth was hating him, but he wasn't doing anything to be competitive against Edward Crimsworth, right? Okay, so in reading, there's going to be 3 types of wrong answer choices. Pretty much all wrong answers fit into these 3 categories. Irrelevant. So if the passage was about elephants and they're giving us an answer about tigers, is irrelevant. The opposite. Now, the opposite is the most tempting answer choice. Because I could say, like here, it's about people who don't like each other. I could say, I really didn't like that guy. Or I could say, I almost didn't like that guy. What does the second one mean?
You liked him at the end.
Yeah, it was like I kind of wanted to not like him, but then he charmed me, right? So it's very easy to put a little word in there that changes the meaning totally and gives us the opposite. And then the last one is if something is too strong. So that would be like optimism would be an example of too strong, because you could feel there was a hint of maybe optimism, but we never see it spelled out. It was stronger than what the author had actually said, right? And then, okay. So does A at least work as an answer choice when you guys see it?
Yeah, it's more like just the basics that happen. Not too
It's specifically what happened. The character disliked his job, and the reason why was because of Edward Crimsworth. Okay, the main purpose of the opening sentence of the passage. All right, now when they're giving us a line reference, this is a line reference. They're telling you there's only one place to look for this. Usually, when it comes to line references, the reference itself we can refer to as the what. So here, the first sentence is going to be the what. It's the thing we're talking about, right? But then you're going to want to look before it and after it, and there's going to be some information that came just before or just after that says the why. And you'd be amazed if you look at it this way. A lot of the time, authors will say, you know, this thing was really important, and now I'm going to tell you why it was important. And then they give an example of something. So like if we look right before, we get that sentence that says, now I'm going to tell you why this was so important. You get the reason why the author is saying this. All you have to do is really know where to look. So this is going to be the opening sentence. So most likely, the key to why it's important is going to come right after, right? So the first sentence, no man likes to acknowledge that he's made a mistake in the choice of his profession, and every man worthy of the name will row long against the wind and tide before he allows himself to cry out, I am baffled, and submits to be floated passively from land, passively back to land. Okay, now what was that sentence? How does that sentence relate to the sentence after it? We already talked about it.
He's like generally saying something that anyone would say, because he says like no one in a way. Like he doesn't say.
And then how does it change later?
He doesn't say. Later he talks about himself that what he doesn't like. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's going to tell a story about himself. So then why did he include that sentence in the beginning? Like why would you say in your words?
So why would he say no man?
Yeah, like why would he make this observation about men in general, about people in general, right before talking about his own story? Like, what do you think the purpose of that is?
He's saying that every time like somebody gets like a new job, they may feel like the same.
To get the audience's attention.
to get the audience's attention. Well, I mean, that's kind of, I mean, both of you guys kind of sound like you're talking about, like, that's the point of the story, right? Like,
Yeah.
this is going to be why I'm going to tell you this story. And what was the thing, like, if we consider the blue thing that way, what is the thing that the author wants us to get out of this story we're about to hear? No man likes to acknowledge that he made a mistake. So what's going to be the point of the story?
Regret.
Sad something?
Say it again?
Like sad or?
Well, he made a mistake, and he doesn't like to acknowledge it, right? So what emotion is that?
Guilt.
Guilt, like regret, maybe humiliation. I don't want to admit that I made a mistake, right? No man likes to acknowledge that he made a mistake. So I think with the author kind of telling this story, he's like saying, you know, I did make a mistake. It was kind of a stupid one. I should have known better than to trust Edward Crimsworth. And I'm going to kind of give you my whole story so I could tell you why, you know, even though it was like a dumb mistake, you know, to let this person be my friend, I'll take you through the whole story of like why it happened, right? Okay, so what answer are we picking right here? Take a second.
I say A for apple.
A for apple. Okay, that's one answer. What's our other answer?
It's A or B.
A or B? Okay. So here's what I don't like about A. Why is it wrong to say this thing I underlined in red?
Oh, he didn't talk about the controversy.
Yeah, controversy would be like, should there be abortion or should there be, you know, gay marriage? That's like a controversy. But this wasn't a controversy. This was like a conflict between two people, right? And it does end up being B. What? I'm sorry?
I looked at the word context wrong.
It looked like conflict, right?
Evidence of his own story.
So
Yeah.
what's wrong with C?
He was never like in an opening sentence introduction. He was after the introduction.
Well, what I don't like is that they're talking about Edward Crimsworth's friend. What were you saying?
I said it's not the main purpose of the opening sentence.
Well, I mean, this is not about what Edward Crimsworth went through, right? This is about what the narrator went through. So remember when we said the three types of wrong answer choices are irrelevant, opposite, and too strong? This is the opposite. Edward Crimsworth is the bad guy. Our narrator is the good guy. We don't want to hear about what Edward Crimsworth went through, his plight, right? What's wrong with Z?
Irrelevant.
Well, who had the malicious conduct?
Edward,
not the narrator, right? So this is another one that if you think about it, it's the opposite. Now I'm focusing on the opposite because there's a reason why the opposite answers tend to look good, because we did see Edward Crimsworth in here, right? So if we see it in there, we're going to be like, oh, yeah, that's it. Or if we see malicious conduct, we might pick it because there was some malicious conduct in here, right? But it wasn't the narrator's malicious conduct. So this is why I'm saying the opposite answer choice can be really tempting. Okay, we talked about this. Do you guys remember it? During the first paragraph, the narrator's focus shifts from blank to blank. What do you guys think it is?
C. C.
Perfect. And that's what we talked about, right? General to specific. Generalization about jobs in general to the specifics of his own situation. Nice. All right, now, the reference to shade and darkness at the end of the first paragraph mainly have which effects? Okay, so let me open up my double screen so we can see it both on the same screen. So we're talking about shade and darkness at the end of the first paragraph. That's a long first paragraph. Okay, I see shade right here, and I see darkness. And what do you guys think is the effect of the references to shade and darkness? In your words, what's the effect of that?
What's dismay?
Dismay is sadness.
What is it?
Sadness.
It's scratchy. I can't really hear you.
I was saying sadness.
Oh.
Let me make sure I have the right. Yeah, I actually do. Okay. Yeah, sadness. Okay. So now, in your words, though, this is we want to do this whenever we can. What do you guys think the references to shade and darkness do? We talked about it already.
Sadness. Negative.
Yeah, they give us that sadness, right? Yeah, it's like depression, right? I mean, a plant growing in the humid darkness out of the slimy walls of a well. You're definitely not happy if you're describing your life that way, right? So it's the narrator's sense of sadness. Yes, good. The passage indicates that Edward Crimsworth's behavior was mainly caused by his what?
B.
Okay, guys, this one's a little different. Now we're because we got some general questions about things that were going on in general, but now they're getting very specific. And the rule that I may or may not have given you. Let me see if I wrote it specifically as a rule or not. Okay, yeah, we haven't even gotten into this one, so we're going to quickly add rule number 4, okay? And we've already broken this rule a couple of times, but it's okay. Rule number 4. Every answer must come from a specific line of text. I told it to you, but I didn't write it before. So we're going to say whatever answer we pick about what caused Edward Crimsworth's behavior, we have to be able to point to a specific line of the passage, okay? So can you guys take a second to look around and see if you see the narrator ever saying, why did Edward behave the way he did?
Can you read that?
We're looking through the passage for a specific little line or phrase that explains the question, which is asking us, why did Edward behave the way he did? Edward Crimsworth's behavior was caused by what? Tell me if you see it anywhere. I'm going to go ahead and circle where it's located on my screen.
The second paragraph. We talks about like accent and stuff.
What line number are you talking about?
The pink.
38. Line
38 says,
yeah.
My accent annoyed him. The degree of education irritated him. Kasim, is that the one you were going to say?
Yeah.
Okay, and Deontay, what about you?
Same thing.
Same thing? Okay. All right, yeah. So then in our words, right here we're saying that Crimsworth was motivated by what?
Jealousy.
Jealousy. So what answer is that?
D.
D. So, and that's what happens when you answer in your own words. It'll often say exactly what it said. But the reason why we answer in our own words is because of that opposite one that we talked about. Because it might have said, there might be an answer choice that said he almost felt jealousy. And if we're looking at the answer choices first, we're going to be a lot more likely to pick that one, even though that might have been the opposite answer choice. Alrighty. Okay, you know what? This is a quick one because we talked about it. You guys remember this? When the narrator began working for Edward Crimsworth, he viewed Crimsworth as what? What did we say?
A friend, a brother.
Yeah. So,
Oh, wait. Yeah, brother.
hey,
Now, there's more than one answer choice that points to a friend. Which ones say that? Harmless rival.
A and B.
Sympathetic ally, right? Yeah, a judge and a mentor is different. That's like your teacher, right? So now, between A and B, we have 4 words there. One of those words is not how he viewed them in the beginning, how he viewed him in the beginning. Which of those 4 words?
Sympathetic.
He viewed him as sympathetic because your brother is sympathetic, right?
you're so harmless because you was mad.
Ally?
No, well, he viewed him as harmless because, like, if I'm just thinking about, he used to be my brother, right? If he used to be my brother, then my brother is harmless. He's nice. My brother is sympathetic. He's my family. My brother is my ally, right?
Oh,
Why is my brother not my rival?
They weren't competitive.
Yeah, that's not, it's like, I mean, brothers actually can be competitive, right? But when we're saying I viewed him as my brother, I'm not saying that. I'm saying I liked him. You know, we had a good relationship. So yeah, the word rival is the reason why A can't be right. Because later on he became a rival, but in the beginning he was my brother. So tell me, guys, how much did we help you today on the reading?
It was good.
It was good. I learned a lot.
It's not easy, right?
It's not easy.
No.
Close
Okay.
to yeah.
But
What's that?
before,
It's kind of close, like to the level of math on the SAT. I didn't think. I thought it was easier than math, but it's kind of hard in like math too.
Okay. And Deontay, what were you gonna say?
yeah, I said, compared from before, how I was reading it, this is better.
And welcome to adulthood, guys. A parent was just telling me, oh, my daughter has to give up her Fridays for this class. I said, well, welcome to adulthood. It's hard work, right? I'm not here to tell you that this is easy right now. You're suddenly gonna just, do a lot better. I'm telling you that if you follow this path that I'm showing you and you keep practicing all the time, you'll be on the right path, right? So I disagree with you in the sense that I think this is harder than the math. But in any case, if I feel that way and I got my SAT coming up, then I'm definitely going to do a little bit of this every day, right? Just read a little. The SAT practice test, they give you explanations of why the right answers are right and why the wrong answers are wrong. I don't know if you know that off the website. So if you pick just a couple of questions from a passage and answer them and go ahead and look at why they're right or wrong every day, you're at least moving in the right direction, right?
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for hanging out with me, and we'll keep seeing you. Keep coming back, okay?
All right. Thank you.
All right, guys. Take care.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.